always used to lay you clean up the messes. Down on my knees, thought I couldn't stand up on my own. Turns out sometimes you're stronger alone.
Hey, Mike Shimwell here, host of the Shunned podcast. If you want to tell your story, buy a t-shirt, maybe some merch, maybe get some additional resources, you can do so at shunnedpodcast.com. If you want professional help to heal and recover from life in a cult so that you can figure out who you are and what you want out of this life, or maybe you just want to figure out where the patterns from the past might still be showing up in your life today, you can find help at exjwhelp.com. Again, that's exjwhelp.com. And every episode of the Shun podcast has helpful links in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. So if you need something, you can always look there. And now let's meet our guest.
My name is Hali. I am 31 years old as of last week, and I am shunned.
Happy birthday, Hali.
Thank you.
Congratulations. The big 31.
Yes, I celebrated with a severed head on a plate.
Awesome. Well, as anyone would, right?
As we should.
As one does.
Yes.
So how did you're 31 today, how'd you come to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place?
I was born into it. Third generation on my dad's side, and then second generation on my mom's side. So I never had a chance. But I was born and raised into it. My dad was raised in it. So my grandmother on his side, she became a witness about 55 years ago. And my mom got together with my dad when she wasn't a witness and he was disfellowshipped, I think. And so she studied with her mother-in-law and became a witness through my dad's mother. Sounds a little confusing, but she was baptized when she was around 19 and then she had me at 20. So raised in it from there.
Off you went. Okay.
Yeah, off I went. Didn't know anything else.
And it sounds like your mom was young Jehovah's Witness parents.
Yes. Yeah, they were 19. No. Yeah, 20. And then I think my dad would have been 22.
Wow. Wow. It's wild as you get older to look at certain milestones or look back at certain times in your life to realize I'm at that age that my parents already had many kids.
I mean,
doing
when
whatever.
my mom was my age, she already had 3, and and the stuff she was dealing with my dad, which we'll get into, I just can't. I feel like I'm not old enough to have a kid, much less 3. So yeah, it is wild to think about how young they were and how much change they were going through. My mom, becoming a witness and then having a kid, and she was going to college when she was pregnant with me, trying to get her degree in psychology, but she had me and felt it was best to stay home. So she dropped out of school with, not much left to go, and stayed at home with me. And 2 years later, my younger sister, Rachel, came along. And then 4 years after that, my baby sister. So she stayed at home with us. And yeah, a lot for someone her age.
Yeah, and I find it interesting. So she was going to school for psychology?
She was, yes.
Because often people who are going to school for that are maybe looking to understand something within themselves or the people that they loved that they came from.
Yes.
And that can sometimes indicate some vulnerability that might have been exploited by a cult that has a
absolutely
hopeful message.
Yes, she had a very, very rough childhood in a lot of different ways. And so I feel like she was trying to get out of that house and met my dad. And, my he's struggled with opioid addiction for 25 years. So since I was, 4 or 5, my very first memory when I was 5 was a SWAT team busting into my childhood home at probably like 5 a.m. and taking me and my sister, we're 5 and 3 at this point, out into the front yard, and my dad's on his knees, at gunpoint being arrested in front of us for, they thought he was involved in some sort of ring. And so he's on drugs, possibly selling them. Like that was one of my very first memories. So my mom was pregnant with her third child, my youngest sister at that time. So she was dealing with a lot while we're all witnesses going to the Kingdom Hall. This is happening in my childhood home.
So It sounds like your home environment had some chaos. Would that be a term?
It was chaos, but I looking back on it now is where I see the chaos. When I was living in it, I didn't know any different. Like
Yeah,
I
sure.
knew that my dad was always in trouble, but I didn't understand why my mom um and my dad's mother, my grandma, they were so good at shielding us from everything and keeping us in the meetings and keeping us focused on that. um which I mean, now how I feel about the witnesses is different, but I guess at the time it saved us from going through consciously what my dad was going through. So yeah, it was chaos, but I didn't realize that until looking back, because at the time it felt like this is just life, this is just but being a witness as a kid, you have shame in you, but you don't realize why. Like, you can't put your finger on it. You get into school and you know that you're different. You don't want to be different, and then there's the shame of having a parent who's an addict. So we grew up with this double layer of just shame in our house that we couldn't fully explain until we got older, and then we're like, oh, that's why we felt that way.
Well, that's really tough.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering, you have the double layer of shame as you're talking about. You have
Hmm.
these two worlds that are going on, and I guess I was kind of wondering, was there one of them that was really standing out to you? You said that you were kind of shielded from some of your dad's stuff,
Yes.
um, because, like, that being a core memory at 5, that's a really heavy memory.
My first,
But
and along with that are trips at, because my dad was a welder, and at 5 a.m. I remember, my mom would have to get me and Rachel out of bed and put us in the car and drive and take dad to the methadone clinic, so that he could, because he was trying so hard to get off of this stuff. Um, so those, yeah, those are my memories. But as far as one world standing out more than the other, I really, it's odd to say, but I really don't think so. It was just like, oh, well, we're in the correct religion. We're so blessed, we're so lucky, we're chosen. And then this thing with dad is just happening.
well, and there's also the dichotomy of the chaos with your dad and what he's going through, but
Yeah,
that may have made the witness part of your life seem even that much more stable. I
exactly.
don't know,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's this constant in your life. You're going to the meetings.
And
We're
at that time, 3 times a week, we're
yeah,
going Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, and then occasionally. And my mom pioneered as well when we were little. She was a regular pioneer. She didn't work. She did the right thing and stayed at home and pioneered. So we were out in service a lot. Meetings 3 times a week. And I think you're right. I think it did provide like something we could count on that we knew was going to happen, on a daily basis.
and so what was the worldview that this was giving you? Being, I don't know if it was balanced at all with, or seeing what was going on with your dad. You're probably too young to really understand anyway. But what was the worldview that being raised as a little witness was giving you as all of this was happening?
It just felt so normal. It just felt like, because I did have a big family. My mom's side of the family never became witnesses, weren't interested. We didn't see them much, maybe twice a year. So my dad's side of the family, who are to this day are all witnesses, they were our support system. If it weren't for them and some of the ways that they helped us, financially, entertaining, giving us good memories, going camping, going to the beach, because I grew up in Florida. Um, that was our world, was witness. We didn't have contact yet with really anyone outside of that. So like, we knew dad was struggling with something, but we had this huge family that kind of like love bombed us, but in a good way, not in a bad way like most witnesses do. But they were just so enveloping with us all
Well,
as
love
kids
bombing
all
is
the time.
temporary. It sounds like they were there kind of
Yes, they were
um,
a constant.
a
They were a
constant.
constant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they made
So
sure we had really good memories. They made sure we had a lot of fun, that we did, as witnesses. I mean, I never, people ask me today, they're like, do you feel like you missed out not celebrating holidays as a kid? And I'm like, no, because I didn't know any different. number one. And then number two, it was like we were always camping, always at the beach, always having sleepovers at my aunt's house. One of my aunts was the fun house that all the kids in the hall wanted to go to. So I have so many good memories because of them.
I'm glad to hear that. It's a lot of our childhoods can be pretty rough,
Yeah.
but and certainly not everyone had access to the fun childhood. But
Yeah.
it is important to note that not everybody who's in the cult as a kid growing up in it is miserable all the time.
Right.
There are these good moments, and
Absolutely.
that's part of what makes it so confusing, is because you're having these good moments, but you're
Hmm.
also involved in something that's so destructive, and
Yes.
that's very confusing.
It
And
does make it almost sinister because you don't, I mean, by the time I realized in my late teens what this religion was capable of, it was way too late. I mean, my entire social, familial, my entire world structure was this religion
sure.
and the people that were in it. But I feel like that, and my mom was very not secretive, but she was very protective of my dad. Not a lot of people, even in the family circle, knew how bad he was, like how bad he was struggling, which that all came to a head, later on when I was about 12 or 13. So yeah, it really helped push things that were going on with him into the background to where it wasn't like, is when I describe it, it sounds like it would be just traumatic and tumultuous, but it really wasn't.
Front and center.
Yeah.
Yeah. You would think it would be. Then it kind of interesting. Here you have someone who's in the throes of addiction,
Hmm.
and it's a parental figure
Yes.
in your home, and that's not the biggest story.
That's not the
Like,
focal point.
I think that kind of shows something too, a little bit. There was
Yeah.
on the other side another addiction of sorts
Yes.
that takes over a person's life and that dominates everything, that people will put ahead of their own children and such.
Absolutely.
There is something else going on there that was even more dominant. Were you a kid that took on the messaging? Like, were you when we're talking about worldview, like, were you afraid of the world outside of the witnesses? Did you have certain viewpoints that maybe kept you isolated?
I wasn't afraid. It was more of I felt sorry for them.
Uh,
I remember being in school. I only went to public school until fifth grade because school is worldly. So, but my parents wanted us to go to school for elementary school to develop social skills, be around other kids. But I remember making friends, and especially when I got to fourth or fifth grade, and I knew that my time in public school was coming to an end. I was I remember sitting in class and like one of my best friends who I'm still Facebook friends with her to this day. I remember thinking like if Armageddon came tomorrow, she would die. And what a bizarre thought for a 9, 10-year-old to be thinking about. And this was before the real big push of school is your territory. So like I wasn't trying to witness to kids at this point. But I remember thinking that I wasn't afraid of other kids, or not of kids, but of the world. But I was just more like, wow, that's so unfortunate. Like, how did I get so, how did I get so lucky?
well, of course, right? It makes you
Right.
feel special.
Yes.
You've got this special knowledge that is going
But
to
it was like,
save
why
you.
me? It was
Yeah.
like, why me? And then I remember my last day of fifth grade, I had like a little boyfriend at this point that I had already been talked to about by the elders. And I had my best friends. And on my way home from school that day, I'll never forget, on the back of the bus, I was sobbing. I was sobbing as the bus pulled up to my home. And I go inside and my parents are there and they're like, why are what's wrong? And I was like, I'm never going to see my friends again. And I was so
Aw.
upset. And my dad he was so smart. He's like, you got a little boyfriend, don't you? And I told him the truth. Like he just knew. And then of course, he called the elders and they came and talked to me. Because what a sin, right? So hadn't even held hands with this boy. It was just like we liked each other and that was it. So
Well, and it's not that was that the main reason, or were you just sad you were gonna miss all your friends?
I was sad I was gonna miss all my
Because
friends. I didn't, I mean, I say naturally introverted, but it's like, am I naturally introverted because of how I grew up? Or, you know what I mean? Like, is it cult and homeschool, or is it just me? I'm just an introverted person. But I was like, man, I made friends. I clicked with people and I'm never going to see them again. And now I'm going to be just at home with me and my sister because she was only 2 years behind me. So it was going to be me homeschooling by myself for 2 years while my mom, at this point, once I started homeschooling was when my parents, they had already split. Mom's working full time. And so I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, this is unknown. This is scary. I think I like the routine of school. Like, to this day, I like to get up at the same time, go to bed at the same time. I eat the same food every day. Like, I meal prep on Saturdays. I eat the same thing every day for 7 days. Like, I'm very, very regimented. So I think it was just such a scary unknown. And at this point, my dad's getting very bad, very sick. The fights between him and my parents were more and more volatile, never physical, but more and more volatile. And I'm done with school at this point. It's summertime. I think it was June of that year. I'm 12 years old, about to go into middle school. And this fight I knew something was different about this fight. And I called the police and they came. And my mom knew it was time to go. Like, it was now a dangerous point for us to be all in the house because he's, binging, withdrawing, going through the whole cycle. So the police come. One of my mom's best friend in the congregation we went to, who was also a stay-at-home pioneer, she came and picked us all up, and we ended up living with her for about a month because my dad was out of control, ended up in the hospital, and then finally he went to prison for about a year. And so once he was taken away, we came and took back over our home, and my family came in and like helped us clean it up and get it situated for us to live in it again. Just, us girls, my mom and me and my two sisters. So this is when my mom, because she had no education, she quit college, she was pioneering. So she starts cleaning houses and, because that's all she could do. So she's building up clientele and, she has 3 kids at this point to support. My dad, of course, is away, and I'm just starting homeschool, and 2 of my sisters are still in school. But hey, we got to go to the meeting tomorrow. So
yeah,
isn't that crazy?
And your dad is in prison,
Right?
he's still your dad, and
Right.
like so.
And I mean, he went to federal prison. He was in another state, 2 states away for the better part of a year.
And that happens. Does anybody talk to you about that? Does anybody sit you down and say, "Hey, Haley, how you doing? How are you feeling about this? Do you need any help? Can we talk about this?" Was anybody there for you around that?
I would say my grandma. And when I say grandma, I'm talking about my dad's mom. She's she helped raise all of us. The one person I wish that I could talk to would be her. Her and a couple of my aunts, my mother, they were very much present. It was very much like, let's rally and like help them out. That's the moment that I'm referring to when I say that his, addiction really came to a head, and it couldn't be really swept under the rug anymore. Everyone knew what was going on with my dad. So there was like emotional and mental assistance as far as like, let's go do this, let's go do that, let's make sure we're getting you to the meetings. If my mom needed help, like,
Oh yeah, I'm not talking about just keeping you busy.
But as far as therapy,
yeah, I'm talking about real sit down, intimate conversation with a loved one or a professional counselor or someone who is trying to help you through that, because that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And Jehovah's
Um,
Witnesses are good at times at rallying around and
yes,
making sure maybe somebody has some food or
right.
that you make it to the damn meetings.
Yes.
But what about the human and the feelings underneath? Is anybody helping a 12-year-old girl who just lost her dad and is now that's going to have consequences, not to mention the fact
Lifelong.
that for 12 years he had been struggling.
No. The quick answer to that is no. And I actually went over this in therapy because I did do some therapy for about a year. And I was thinking about it because at this time I'm 12, my middle sister's 10, my baby sister is 6. I mean, so she got the worst part of our dad. I probably got the best. So I remember going over this in therapy and saying, like, it is so bizarre to me to think now that all of that was going on with my dad and no one told us anything. Like, I'm a little girl and my dad's being, arrested in front of me or taken away or just and I didn't know that he was a bad guy. I didn't know that he was into some bad stuff. And so in my mind, I'm like, they're hurting my dad. Like he's innocent, and and that affected me for decades because I really had a hard time framing him for who he was, and what he was struggling with. And in my mind, he was this hero that he was misunderstood. He was innocent. He was poor dad, poor dad, poor dad. Um, but yeah, I was like, why did no one tell me and my sisters what was going on so that we knew where he was, like what was happening? I didn't know that he was struggling like that until I was 12, until he was in prison. Um, and then like things from my past started to click into place. But yeah, there was no like checking in, or it was just keep trucking,
Yeah. I remember having a parent who um, was definitely struggling mentally and emotionally, and went to the hospital a few times for
Hmm.
some extended stays. And being that 12, 13-year-old kid, whatever, and nobody told me anything. I
Right.
had no knowledge of what was going on. It's just, I mean, literally nothing. No one said a
Hmm.
thing. You just,
And as a child, you form your own opinion of what's going on, and like
sure.
you fill in the blanks because you have nothing else to do. And I have asked my mother about that since then, like, what, but I mean, she was so young. My
Mhm.
grandma, this is not only her grandchildren going through this, but it's her son. And she's like, we did what we felt was best at the time. And I'm like, I get that. I get that.
Oh,
I
for
don't know what I
sure.
would do in that situation. I don't know how I would handle it because it's just like, everybody was going through so much and circling around him, circling the drain with him.
Yeah, so it really kind of becomes a lesson of or an exercise in survival.
Yes.
Everybody's just rallying around, just trying to get the basics done, which I get.
Yes.
But there's just such an emotional desert that comes along with being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, where nobody really is doing super well emotionally, and they don't know
Correct.
how to help one another. They're not taught to. You have these elders who are supposed to be these spiritual shepherds, but
Yeah. That have no training
they have no
whatsoever.
training. They don't know what they're doing.
They can't
My dad
recognize
was
mental
one of
illness.
them, and he had no clue, you know.
Right.
So yeah, it's a tough situation. So it sounds like you guys were really just once that happened, it was you all were rallying around each other. Did the congregation rally around you guys at all?
I think a select few did. I remember there was a dear, I almost said sister, see, it's still there,
Mhm.
but she was very helpful with setting my mom up with clientele, with real help to where, my mom got to a point where she's doing this full time, and cleaning is hard work, but it pays well.
Mhm.
And, she really helped with that. Of course, my mom's best friend that we lived with for a while, that was a lifesaver. And her husband are very like, they're very special people. They were very instrumental in getting us out of that tough spot. But I would say other than that, it was just kind of, I don't want to say people treated us like we were icky, but it very much was like, ooh, like their dad, and ooh, like what do we say? How do we handle this? Because I feel like it's probably more common now, but 20 years ago, like someone in the throes of addiction in the Kingdom Hall was just not a thing. Like it just wasn't. I feel like it was. I feel like it's much more acceptable now. Like there's more understanding.
So, it is true. Again, you do kind of get judged in the congregation in certain ways.
Yeah,
Sometimes, I mean, how I can't tell you how many people I've either coached in my coaching practice or I've interviewed on here who uh were the single parent family. You've got this single mom and some kids, and you would think that the witnesses would rally around that group and help them out, but
yeah,
it usually seems that more often than not they're kind of judged as being different or less spiritual in some way
yeah.
and
It's
seen
very
as potentially
unspoken.
bad association.
Correct. And honestly, at this point, I mean, by witness standards, I was. This is where I start getting in trouble. So this is where I start, I guess, acting out, or maybe I was doing what normal 13-year-olds do. I don't know,
Well,
but
normal 13-year-olds who just had their father go off to
yes,
prison and who are in the
right,
midst of all this turmoil, yeah,
yes,
acting out is a normal thing that people do.
right. So I think I was around 13-ish, and he's out by this point. I think my parents gave it one last hoorah, to see. But my mom, she's so strong. I mean, after 14 years with this man, she loved him. She knew that it just wasn't healthy for us kids, and she put us first and made the hardest. I mean, it's a decision I hope that I would be able to make if I were in her situation. So she's put an end to things. My dad hops on a bus, and I think I see him less than 5 times over the next 20 years.
Wow.
So that's kind of the end of that. Phone communication after that, but really it was more of me trying, me and my sisters trying. It was a very kind of a one way street. So we've accepted this. This is life now. My mom at this point, she's obviously not pioneering because she's working. So she's, we're trucking along, we're going to the meetings. But, I start realizing that there's boys, and I'm 13, 14. My dad's out of the picture. Like I believe that I'm in the truth at this point. I, always did. But I just didn't care, I guess, at this point. So I get in trouble. And this was my first experience in a judicial meeting at 13.
Were you baptized?
I was not.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I was not. So, well, I guess I say judicial loosely. It was only 2 elders, but I was a publisher. So they still had a way that they could like derank me,
Oh
right?
yeah, you can be
So
marked or
you can be removed.
yeah,
So
bad
I'm
association.
in this judicial meeting with 2 old men sitting in front of me. I'm 13. My mother's next to me. And I am asked probing, inappropriate, unnecessary questions about what I did, things that like there is no reason to ask these kinds of questions. But I mean, this is normal to me at the time. I'm like, this is just what happens when you sin. Like, you're going to be interrogated. This is what I'm supposed to do. Like, the scripture in James talks about going before, and when you're spiritually sick and, going before the elder, like, this is what I'm supposed to do. So
So likely some
humiliating.
of the questions were even above your head, right? I
I
mean,
had exactly. I'm glad you said that because there were a couple questions that I don't even remember how I answered them, but I remember thinking, I don't know what this means.
but you have to answer it, and
But
the
I
answer
have to
you give
answer
could
them.
have dire
And
consequences.
I was mortified to be like, hey, mom, can you tell me what this phrase means? So I feel like I probably, just being a people pleaser, I probably just said yes to because I didn't know,
Well,
just
and I just think
innocent.
that it adds another layer to the, let's call it sexual abuse, because it is,
Yes, it
that is
is.
going on in that room, because you
It
have
is.
these adult men treating you, a 13-year-old girl, like you're an adult, just like they would any adult.
Yes.
And they don't, it betrays their lack of understanding,
Yes.
betrays how poor they do this job, and that they shouldn't be doing any of it because they're just not qualified
No.
to have these conversations. And again, it's not about trying to figure out if they can help you mentally and emotionally in some way if they think
No.
you're struggling.
They wanted to know the
They want
degree
to
of my
punish you.
sin so that they knew how to punish me.
Yes.
So the verdict was I was guilty and I was removed as a publisher. So a lot of people in my hall didn't even know that was a thing. So it's announced. It's announced. Hali, my maiden name is no longer a publisher of the Good News or something like that. I had people coming up to me after that meeting saying, like, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk to you anymore because they didn't even know what that meant. And I'm like, yeah, you can talk to me. I can't, I think my restriction was I couldn't go out in service. Like I couldn't go out, something like that. And I'm like, whew, dodged a bullet there. Like, I mean, don't threaten me with a good time. I was like, I don't care. So,
You can't
but I
go
was
knock on strangers' doors anymore.
right,
That's your
right.
punishment.
Which, I mean, looking back now, there was a man in my hall who was accused of things to where he was restricted. And I remember being put in car groups with him and allowed to go door to door with him by myself at like 6 years old. So I'm like, I mean, tell me I can't go out in service? Like, okay. So I'm marked at this point, in the congregation, and I'm probably 14. My middle sister's 12. I think she got baptized shortly, probably not too long after. So I mean, I'm being demoted and she's rising up in the ranks, and she's doing well. She was the sensitive, like quiet, shy one, and I was the troublemaker. Um so we're homeschooling at this point though, still, like we're just but after that I don't think anything major happens again until I'm about 15. I get in trouble again. But this time I'm terrified because I'm like, I've already been demoted. I've been removed as a publisher. I've been shamed. I've been marked. My middle sister's definitely baptized at this point. I'm terrified. I'm like, I don't know what to do. What else can they do to me? Like, I didn't know what was next. I was scared. But I always told myself anytime I was in trouble, because my conscience was very severe. Like, anytime I did anything wrong, I told myself, like, no one was going to get me in trouble. I was going to do it for me. And so it's where it gets kind of tough. I set up a meeting with the elders because I knew I couldn't live with the guilt. I was like, if Armageddon comes tomorrow and I haven't confessed this, I'm going to die. So, and that's not satire. That's like actual, like I thought that. And
Many people do, and many people confess out
yes,
of that fear.
out of that fear. And so it's a Thursday night at the meeting, and I'm meeting with them afterwards, and I'm like shaking the whole time. Hands are clammy. I'm just dreading it. I'm dreading getting in trouble again, because I don't even think my mom knew it was gonna blindside her that I was in trouble again.
And how old are you at this
So,
point?
I'm 15.
So it's not even that long. Yeah, it's couple of years later. Now here you are again. Wow.
Here I am again getting in trouble. And I probably was unruly in between there and giving my mom all kinds of problems. I decided I couldn't face this. I couldn't do it. It was too scary. So I went to the bathroom at the Kingdom Hall, and I had a brand new bottle of Excedrin. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to get out of this, like one way or the other. Swallowed the whole thing, the whole bottle. I think all 30 pills. And my intent looking back was not to end my life by any means. I wanted out of that situation, and I didn't care what dramatic thing I had to do. I was going to get out of it. 15-year-old me, no clue of consequences, like not even a thought. I'm thinking in the moment, the meeting is ending in like 30 minutes and I got to do something. As soon as I swallow them, though, I'm in panic mode because I'm like, like, what if I die? Like, this is scary. So I run out of the bathroom. I get one of my aunts and I tell her what I did. And of course, they drive me to the hospital, and I'm in the hospital for, it was terrible. I think I had to swallow charcoal, like to get sick and throw it all up. I was in there for probably 2 or 3 days. Like, I made it. It was terrible, but I made it.
Glad you made it.
But after that, when I met with one of the elders about why I did what I did, I told them, I was like, I am in trouble again. I did something, and I just didn't want to have to go to that elders meeting. And he said, well, you've already been removed as a publisher, so you had no obligation to meet with us about anything. And so I'm like, but, and I was flabbergasted. I was like, I almost accidentally ended my life because I was so terrified to meet with you guys, thinking that it's what I had to do. But yet, through some like legalistic loophole, because I was already the lowest position I could be, wasn't even a publisher, I technically didn't have to meet with you. And I was like,
Also,
I thought I was doing the right thing.
that's oh God, that's also just so like, who cares if that was the right thing to do technically as far as meeting with the elders, whatever.
Right.
Oh my God, you almost killed yourself
Yes. Out
over
of
the
fear.
fear of talking to us
Right.
as a 15-year-old. What a messed up system I must, as this elder, be a part of, that it's
Yes.
pressuring 15-year-olds to swallow bottles of pills
At the
rather
Kingdom
than
Hall.
talk to us.
Yes. Yes.
That's a swing and a miss there. And
That's why all those scriptures, anytime they'd have an article about the elders being like what is it, a hiding place from the wind,
shelter.
I just roll my, I'm like, no, if you grow up this way, they are terrifying. It is never a good thing to be called to that back room. It is never a good thing to have elders call your parents or call you. It is never because you're just doing well and they want to commend you. It is always because you've been caught or told on, or they're investigating something and your name comes up. It is never a good thing.
They're going to pick at you, and there's a possibility of a public shaming through an announcement to the entire congregation
Yes. As a child,
about
as
you that looms
13.
over your head.
Yes. Yeah. So that was my first
Wow.
yeah, so I mean 13 to 15 was really the first time I realized how dangerous this religion is. Like how serious it is, because it I mean, you talk about shame, just lived with it, just constantly.
That
Yeah.
honestly, as you're talking, the shame, shame is addiction fuel.
Yes.
And I don't know the situation with your dad, but growing up in the multi-generational JW system, certainly there may have been some shame, maybe there's other things going on. We haven't got deep into his story, and I don't necessarily need to, but just makes you wonder, at least, if there wasn't, this shame and a past that was involved at
Yes,
all. Um,
absolutely.
because the shame almost drove you into to do something that you would not have done
Permanent.
otherwise, and that
Yeah, permanent.
15-year-olds don't do unless they're put under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like I mean, such a good point for that elder to not think like, oh my goodness, I mean, there's something wrong here. If this system that we have set up um almost drove a 15-year-old to accidentally, end her life, like we have to take another look at this. Like, there's something fundamentally wrong here with how we're doing things. But yeah, so I survived that. I think I'm 17 before I'm really in trouble again.
Okay.
I have a boyfriend at this point that I'm open with, it with my parents, with my mom, with friends. He's a witness boy. I'm 17-ish. His mother is a witness, his sister. My parents go out of town. I should step back. My mom remarried at this point,
Hmm.
to a witness guy. They didn't last very long. He was not a very good person to her, but so they're remarried. They're out of town on this weekend. I'm home alone because I'm 17 and I'm responsible. So my boyfriend and his mother and sister come in to stay the night with me. His mother hey, let's go to the liquor store and you guys can just pick out like whatever you want. Again, I'm 17. I think he's 18 or 19. The sister is younger than me. So I'm like, heck yeah. I think I picked out, I don't know, it doesn't matter. I was drunk, rip roaring drunk. Apparently all of us were. His mother, because of my behavior, I suppose, ends up calling the police on me, which is bizarre because she has supplied us, with this
Yes.
alcohol. Somehow the police come, they talk to me. I'm not arrested, but I'm put in handcuffs and put in the back of a police car. I am taken to a psychiatric hospital and I am placed under a 72-hour hold. And I wake up. I remember getting there. So of course my mom's there. My mom and her husband have had to cancel their vacation. They've come home. They're in the hospital. I'm there for 3 days. They can't get me out. They can't do anything. And I told them what happened. I don't think anyone ever got in trouble for that. I mean, I remember social services paying his mother a visit. I don't know that anything ever came up from that, but I was at Florida. I mean, they have the Baker Act. I was Baker acted. I was hospitalized for 72 hours, like over a misunderstanding. Like I was intoxicated. I was not having like a mental break or anything like that.
Well, mom was intoxicated too, wasn't she?
Yes,
So
that's
why?
why I'm like, I don't know why no one else but me got in trouble.
Well, not only that, but just like whatever it was that she thought you did or said it meant something that you should be Baker acted for.
Yeah,
How do we trust her?
right.
Because she's lit too. Like,
Somehow she was, I think she had a problem. I think she had a high tolerance and I think she was able to hold it well. And I'm 17 and I can't because I have no experience with alcohol up until this point. I mean, this is really where it started.
well, and can we just say two things? One, here's this mom of your boyfriend coming and they're all staying with you. Just kind of a little odd.
That
And
in and of
then
itself is bizarre.
that's bizarre. And then she's bringing in and feeding alcohol to you and your boyfriend,
Yes.
which is a bad recipe too, in
Yes.
many different ways from the witness perspective and
Absolutely.
legally. So witnesses have no problem. I mean, I've been camping where elders and pioneers were feeding alcohol to all the young people, and I watched it all go down.
Yep.
Um, of course, I was the one who narked on all of them. I was
If it's
like,
an
"This is
actual
messed up."
if it's an actual crime, they don't seem to care too much.
They don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care at all. Nobody,
No.
nothing happened. But also you glossed over it. You said it quickly, and maybe it'll come up more in the story. I don't know. But your mom remarries a guy who it doesn't last long, and he doesn't treat her well. And there's just this pattern in the organization of
Oh, and I'm so sorry. I should say they got disfellowship. So they're dating
oh,
and he was significantly younger than her, not much older than me. Bless her heart. And they got in trouble. They were planning this wedding, and then they told on themselves. They got disfellowshipped. They got married. So at this point, like I'm additionally marked because my mother is disfellowshipped
so your mother and your, I guess
and
he
my stepdad.
stepdad. So,
Yes,
oh gosh. So yeah, another layer of
yes,
mental and emotional turmoil on top of
yes,
everything. But also just how many, it's not easy. There's a lot of abusive relationships inside the organization
yeah.
because the relationship with the organization itself is
It's
inherently
abusive.
abusive.
It's abusive. So
And
and he
so
was
it
my
turns
stepdad
out
was raised.
narcissists.
Yeah, he was raised in I almost said in the truth. He was raised as a witness as well.
Yeah.
So I don't fault him for, I mean, he used a witness loophole to get out of that marriage. Like they divorced with grounds. So, and then he kind of went on and like, you know, he's doing his own thing. I don't hold anything against him. It's toxic. Everything in that
All
religion
of
is
it's toxic.
toxic. Any relationship you have with any human being is only because of your commonalities in your religion. There's no compatibility. You can't go on a date without being chaperoned. You can't get to know each other. So
Yeah.
yes, so he was he was very quickly out of the picture. I think they were only married 3 to 4 years.
Mm.
But yeah, so my mom's disfellowshipped. He is my mother, this will blow your mind. She was counseled against sitting with us at the Kingdom Hall because of being disfellowshipped.
Wow. So she shouldn't sit with their own kids?
They wanted her to sit like a couple seats away.
But Haley, when someone is disfellowshipped in a family, and I know this for a fact because Jehovah's Witnesses say this in courts of law,
Yeah.
they wouldn't lie under oath.
Of course not.
Normal family relations remain.
They continue.
There's no difference. They would never encourage shunning or distancing or anything in a family. We
The
know that
the
legally.
laugh the laugh that I laughed when I heard that, what I was like, yeah, I was 17. My middle sister's 15, youngest is 11. They're both baptized at this point. Homeschooling, they're doing far better than me, probably under any standard, because I was getting into actual trouble. But yeah, my mother was counseled to not sit next to us at the Kingdom Hall because it may give, I think it was something to do with like the appearance to others in the hall. That was mind blowing. But what's wild is at the time I didn't think too much of it because I was like, I certainly didn't think it was right because I'm like, that's my mother, but I didn't have like the shock and horror that I have thinking back on it now.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all.
No,
They put appearance over substance all the time. It's who they
all the time.
are. That's what they care about.
Yeah.
And
But yeah,
wow.
normal family relations continue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, just like it always was. There's no
Yeah.
change,
There's
Haley.
no change. There's
No
no change.
change at all. No, no, no. Hey, quick announcement here. If you're enjoying getting to know our guests today and you'd like an opportunity to know them better beyond their story here, I actually have another podcast of sorts called The Back Room. Yes, like taking somebody into the back room at the Kingdom Hall. I'm taking each guest now into the back room and we're going to have a little conversation. 5 quick hitting questions and answers from them about subjects and topics that maybe we're not always discussing here on the podcast. So if you'd like to get to know them more, you have an opportunity to see a little video of each individual from the time that you join. And you also get to interact with these individuals because if they're willing, of course, if they're comfortable, we'll provide their socials and you guys can connect. And support one another, and maybe you make a new friend out of it. I don't know. But I know people really connect to a lot of the guests here, and it's a great way to connect even more. And while you're doing so, you're also supporting me and all the work that I put into this, all the time, the money, the energy, and you get a bonus for it as well. So go to patreon.com/shunned and just join the back room tier and you'll get all the information sent right to you after the episode is released so that you can go further and go deeper and get to know our guests better. And perhaps they'll get to know you too. Speaking of which, now let's get back to our guests. They wouldn't encourage.
So at this point, I'm trying to clean up my life. I start my job at Walgreens, my first job. I'm working full time. I'm finishing school. I'm still homeschooling. I'm thinking about going to like a community college for like a 2-year thing because I'm not going to go off to college. Even though honestly, my mother would have supported that because I mean, she had dropped out of college. It was important to her. And she actually ended up going back about 10 years ago and finishing her degree. So she now works in that field with children. So she would have probably been supportive, but I knew that it was gonna, I'm already so marked. I'm not gonna go off and go to college. Like I'm gonna just get in trouble there. So
And
I'm
you're
looking
still not
into,
baptized anywhere in here, right?
no, I'm not baptized. Yeah. So it's almost like internally I knew, and no one was pressuring me. Like a lot of people on your show have said they're the pressure. I wasn't pressured to be baptized, and I think it was because I was in trouble so often that people were afraid for me too because of getting disfellowshipped. So I'm not baptized. I'm thinking about community college, doing a 2-year thing. I end up signing up and dual enrolling. So I'm in high school, I'm working full time, and I'm going to college all at the same time. That lasted about a semester, and then I was worn out. So I quit and I said, I'll go back when I finish high school. I finish high school. I don't go back because it's hard to go back. I work at Walgreens for a little bit. Now my middle sister gets disfellowshipped, and I'm starting to do better. So better as in witness standards. So we've kind of traded off a little bit. She was 17 and disfellowshipped, and I can't imagine the impact that had on her. The recent update where they said, basically it sounds to me like they're going to stop disfellowshipping minors. That's kind of
They
what I
never said
gathered
that.
from it.
They never said that. They stopped after they said what they said. They said they ended it with 3 elders meeting with the child and the parents. And then they changed the subject. Did not say that. They changed the subject after talking about that. And we all know what 3 elders meeting with them is, right?
But
That's
it does
a judicial
sound,
committee.
do you think it does sound though like they're going to soften a little bit? Like maybe it will be, because they did say like, we'll see what the parents are doing to correct.
I think they're going to give the appearance of that to the governments who they want financial consideration.
Because of Norway. Yeah, that's the only
Because of
reason.
Norway. But do I think that they're, and maybe they will soften some, but I mean, that's like saying,
it's not
like,
out
I'm
of love.
abusing you less. Give me a cookie. No, you don't get a gold star for abusing less. Stop the shunning. Period.
You don't get a gold star for not shunning children as much.
Yes.
So,
yes. We're not going to pat you on the back and high five you because you're not shunning kids anymore.
Right. So my sister had everybody else. That. Yes. And I was so upset for her when I saw that update because I was like, she had to go through that. She had to go through being a 17 and being shunned and homeschooled and having no friends and no one, any friends that she did have in the hall where they couldn't talk to her. And I think my littlest sister at this point is, if I remember right, she was auxiliary pioneering. Like she was doing surprisingly well. And I'm thinking about going to school. Not baptized yet. My aunt is a witness. I mean, everybody on that side of the family is, but she worked at a construction company with a bunch of other people, but there's one other witness there. So there's 2 at this company that she offers me a job at. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I'm thinking, great, I can quit my Walgreens retail schedule that I just didn't like. I wanted an office job. It sounded great. So I quit Walgreens. And so about 19, I think I start working at this company with her. This is where I met my first husband, Andrew. He was a vendor, a subcontractor for this construction company, but he is not a witness. And he is legally separated, but still married on paper. He has 4 children. He is 10 years older than me. Everything that I should not have anything to do with. Plus, this company is small. My witness aunt is the next office over. Regardless, I begin a relationship with him. And of course, it's secret. That was in May of 2013. By October, everything blows up in my face. Everybody finds out. My aunt, who is a witness, I went to her and I said, hey, I'm in some trouble. I'm going to be disfellowshipped. I was like, I understand, if you don't want me working here because that might be awkward. And at first she was like, no, like that's ridiculous. Like you can still work here. We'll just keep it professional. For some reason, things did not go that way. They changed, and she wanted me to quit. And so I agreed because I'm 20 and my whole life is turned upside down. I'm getting disfellowshipped. Like, oh, so at this point I'm baptized. I should have thrown that in there. Like, yeah, I got baptized in March of 2013. I meet Andrew in May of 2013. So I auxiliary pioneered for 2 months, met him, and then everything went downhill.
So what drove you to get baptized in that year? What was it that was the driving force for you?
By witness terms, I'm old. I mean, it's time. It's time. I'm 20. I mean, who is raised in the truth and waits until they're 20 years old to get baptized?
So there was some pressure there.
I think it was
It may not have been
circumstantial
individual pressure, but
Yes.
societally, culturally in the
Yes.
organization, if you're not baptized by a certain age, everyone's going to look at you a certain way.
I knew I was being looked at as a little bit odd.
Sure.
And so I was like, okay, I'm 20, like it's time. And I had changed halls at this point, apart from where my mom and my sisters were going, because I wanted a fresh start. I had always looked at people in the hall. Every hall has them. The people that raise their hand for every question, they're on fire. Like, they just have this zeal that is unmatched. And I remember looking at women like that in the hall, older women. I'm thinking, they must have more Holy Spirit than I do. Like, they have something I don't have, because I don't have the motivation to be like that. I'll never be like that. So I'm like, maybe I need to switch halls. I need a fresh start. I had a genuine heart. I really wanted to try. I've always believed in God. I still do. So I was like, this is what I need. And so some sisters took me under their wing. I start studying with one of them. I get baptized. I'm disfellowshipped 6 months later. I mean, I obviously, I was not cut out for this life at all. So anyway, I'm like, okay, I'll quit this job. Let me come in tomorrow and put in my 2 weeks notice. I'm driving to the job that morning to put in my 2 weeks notice. And my aunt texts me and says, I've told them you're not coming back. Like, don't bother showing up today. Like, you don't need to put in your 2 weeks notice. And I was like, we went from, no, it's okay, you can still work here, to, I'm not even going to let you come put in your 2 weeks notice. So I'm like, okay. And then she was going to meet with me and like have a dinner. And I was going to apologize for embarrassing her because of my bad example. And we make dinner plans, and like an hour before we're supposed to meet, she texted me and said, I don't think I can. Like, I can't meet with you. I'm so sorry. And that was that. Like, I'm disfellowshipped. I go back to Walgreens. I'm still dating Andrew. Like, we're in a committed relationship. So like, the elders even asked me in my judicial meeting, they're like, are you going to stop seeing him? And I was like, no. Like, I was very cold in my judicial meeting, which I'm sure didn't help my cause. But I was like, I'm not going to fake cry. Like, I have no plans of discontinuing this relationship. Like, I may as well just get it all out. I'm back at Walgreens. I think I only worked there until the following May. So maybe 6 or 7 months. And I just quit, and he's still traveling for work, construction at this point. So I quit and just went on the road with him. And I was like, I'm disfellowshipped anyway. I have nothing left to lose. And then we end up settling in Indianapolis. This is in like spring of 2015. We're married at this point. We had gotten married like the summer before. And his children live in Indiana. So that was home base. Things were okay at first. I'm 21. I'm married with 4 stepchildren. I'm living in Indiana, so I'm 11 hours away from everything I've ever known. But none of my family could talk to me anyways, so it didn't really matter at this point. Then I start missing my family. I had heard through the grapevine that my grandma was sick, like something was wrong. And so that was like my kick in the butt to get reinstated, because I was like, if something happens to her and I can't talk to her before she passes, turns out that health condition was blown way out of proportion, maybe intentionally, because none of me and my sisters are doing super well at this point in the witness world. So fast forward maybe 3 years, I'm reinstated. 2017.
Can I ask what that process was like for you of trying to get reinstated?
Yeah, it was super simple. I just showed up at a Kingdom Hall, and I was like, "Hey, I'm from here. I was this fellowship. This is what happened. It was, with the person I'm now married to. What do I need to do? Like, what basically, what are the hoops that I need to jump through so that I can like talk to my family again?" And at this point, the seeds have been planted. My friend had sent me an article. Shout out to Emily. She would love that. She had sent me an article on the Watchtower being involved with the UN.
Mm.
And I read that in probably 2015, and it blew my mind. Blew my mind. But I, shoved it back down because I was like, there's no way. Like, there's something wrong with this article. There's no way. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to get reinstated just so I have my family, and I'll never go to another meeting. I'll just get the label basically and continue on. So I wrote my letter. I'm a decent writer, so it sounded really good. I was reinstated very quickly, even though I'm still traveling at this point. Like, we have a home, but we're essentially coming back for visitation with the children. So I'm like scattered when it comes to meeting attendance. So I still managed to get reinstated. Um, but something happened where all of a sudden I was back in it. And it wasn't just for my family anymore. I was like, so I stopped traveling with him. I'm full time at the meetings. I'm working. At this point is when I go back to Walgreens and wiggle into pharmacy. So I'm working. I've got kids. I'm going to meetings. Andrew's very opposed. He always was opposed. He tried, never in an ugly way, but he tried to plant seeds. I knew. So this is my third level of shame, right? So now I'm reinstated. I'm living off in a different state. I'm managing to go to meetings. I'm getting involved in foreign language. I'm really giving it my best shot here, going out in service. But I have a husband who is opposed, and I need to save his soul. But I'm too ashamed to like even read my Bible in front of him because it's going to trigger this conversation about the witnesses that I don't want to hear. I'm exhausted. These are apostate lies. Get away from me. So
Can I ask why you're so zealous all of a sudden? Why do
I
you think? Because you
really
said there were these other sisters. Now you're being that to some degree.
now I am. You're right. I
What's
think it
driving
was
that? Is it shame, or I'm trying to earn, like I'm trying to push and to overcome everything? Is it, look, I got back in and now the addiction has kicked back in to some degree?
maybe
Because,
so.
it's like you just keep going back to this thing,
Yes.
even though it treats you so badly and destroys
Yeah.
your life. That's kind of the
Which that
nature of it.
pattern showed up in that marriage in years to come. So
Of course.
that's definitely part of my psyche. But I got involved with this hall that was full of younger people, a lot of energy. I
Mm.
made friends. Like, my homeschool wasn't showing as bad, right? So I'm like socially I'm doing okay. This hall knows nothing of my past. I can truly start over. I'm in a different state. Um I picked up the language that I was learning pretty well. I'm doing well in that. Like, I'm being asked to help others. I think it was literally like a brain exercise. Like, it was such a way to use my brain that I hadn't been able to do before. And I'm making friends, and I feel like I'm helping people. The language I learned was Swahili, and so we had like actual refugees that we were helping them. Like, we're making food together. So it was just and remember, I have no family. I'm in Indiana. I'm states away. Like, I'm alone essentially. And so this becomes like my community. These are my friends. This is my new family. And my husband's still traveling. So he's not even with me all the time. So this became like a social thing for me to do when I have really nothing else. I think that's why, because you're right. I was never that person. I still do believe in God. I would still call myself a Christian. Absolutely. So it was like the only avenue I knew of to worship God. And I wanted to do that. So
Hmm.
I'm on fire at this point, but I've got this husband who is opposed and who's planting seeds and trying to show me court documents. He's trying to show me evidence of CSA cover up. He's trying to, but I'm still like, oh, I can't hear that. Like, this is so hard. I'm being persecuted, you know, like the whole, maybe he can be one without a word. It's so like cringy to think back on it now. But then I had this moment, this pivotal moment, so small, but like I was out in service, smushed in a car, like full of like these older pioneers. And we're talking about, you know, my husband and how he's not a believer, but maybe he could become one. And because, you know, that's always their goal.
Yeah, that's
And
he is seen as a potential convert, and
yes,
that's it.
yes. Um, and they're always like, you know, imagine your life, you know, with him as a witness, you know, worshiping by your side. It's just so we're talking about that. And I'm talking about like, hey, I'm blind in one eye. And I was telling the pioneers about this conversation. I was like, yeah, me and Andrew were talking about how I'm blind in one eye and how and Andrew had said maybe in the new system, God will get you, you know, you'll have both of your eyes. And so in my witness brain, I'm thinking, it's working. Like he made reference to the new system. So it's working. So I tell them about this and I'm so excited. And they're like, hey, you're that the time that you're spending talking to him, are you counting that time? And I don't even think I responded right away, but I was just uh, like I didn't still I don't know what to say about it, but I said no. I was like, he's my husband. Why would I count that time? Because in my mind, I'm genuine. Like I'm so excited about it. And yeah, they're like, are you counting that time? And I said no. And they're like, well, you should be. And I was like, well, why? And they said, well, the elders need to know the time that and I was like, God knows. Like, if it's important enough, like, I was like, Jehovah knows how much time I'm spending talking. And I just was, the car got really silent after that. And I didn't know it then, but that conversation was a seed because I was like, this is not right. These people's intentions are different than mine. Not that I'm so great and so pure, but like, they're doing this for a different reason than I am.
Yes, in all of this, you can see that you are a very sincere person.
Yeah, I was
And
trying.
often is the most sincere people who leave. You were sincerely trying. They were just in it for the performance-based rewards, right?
Yes.
If I need to count this time,
Yes.
and you're not seeing humans as real people,
As real
just
people.
objects to be controlled or to be used for your own gain.
Yes.
There's no real connection there. That's really
Yes.
sad. Like, aren't you counting the time you're witnessing to your husband?
And I was so bothered by it that I called my grandma after that because at this point I'm doing okay. Like she's super proud of me. So I call her and I'm like, I went on service today and this is what happened. And she was like, well, why aren't you counting it? The same reaction. And I was like, I said the same thing to her. I was like, why? She's like, the elders need to know. And I said, Jehovah knows if it's important. Like, if it's important, how many hours I've spent talking to Andrew about the Bible, he knows. Like, the person that matters is aware. And so I was so disappointed. Because I really thought, I mean, my grandma is pure. She is pure. She is genuine. She is sincere, just sincerely wrong. But I thought like she's going to be on my side with this. She's going to understand why I feel like this is wrong, and she didn't. And she agreed with them. So I'm plugging along in that. Fast forward to 2020, COVID hit,
Hmm.
and we go to Zoom meetings. And at this point, for probably the last 6 months leading up to COVID, I'm starting to lose my zeal because I don't know if it was never what I was really wanting to do in the first place. If it's pressure from Andrew, if it's whatever, but I'm starting to lose my zeal. I get to the point where COVID hits, we're on Zoom meetings. And the last time I went out in service was February of 2020. And then it happened. I canceled plans that I'd had like the week that everything shut down. So it just kind of worked out. but I'm still on Zoom meetings. But at this point, it's so uncomfortable because now I can't run off to the Kingdom Hall and hide my participation and my commenting, and my husband's at home who is opposed. I'm on Zoom meetings in my bedroom with the headphones in, not singing along to the songs, not participating, wouldn't dream of commenting because he might hear, so there's shame again, like I'm embarrassed. And this is the theme so far of my, relationship with this organization. And that got so hard to keep up. By summer of 2021, I'm no longer attending. Like I'm signing into Zoom and I'm putting it on mute. My camera's off and I'm leaving the room because at least then they can count my attendance and people don't think that I've fallen out of the truth at this point yet. Then I start feeling guilty because I'm like, I'm not attending meetings. This is not good. This is not good.
More shame.
I'm distancing myself from friends, right? More shame. Things with my husband didn't even improve, like as he sees. So I'm like, what is the point? Then I asked myself this question that really got me thinking. I said, do I feel guilty because of what people will think at the hall because I'm not attending? Or do I really think that God cares? Is that why I'm guilty? The answer was obvious. It was the people. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to stop attending until I get my heart right. I'm not going to, because if you, there's a scripture that talks about if you worship without faith or something to that effect, it's in vain. So I'm thinking like, I'm not even going to go until I get my heart right, until I'm genuine. So now when my grandma calls me on the phone and that's all she wants to talk about, I'm keeping up appearances. I'm not lying. I've never lied to her, but I'm sidestepping conversations and trying to allow her to think that I'm still doing really well, but I'm not going at this point. I didn't start actively researching apostate material until January of 2022. So from summer of 21 to January of 22, I'm not researching. So I'm still believing it's the truth, but I'm not attending. I'm guilty. I walked around that whole 6-month period thinking like Armageddon's going to come tomorrow and I'm going to die again. Like just that same cycle over and over again. For some reason, I'm away enough. I've taken enough of a breather from the monotony of the meetings and the pressure and all of that, and things start to fall apart. Like layers start to come off, and you can breathe. Your critical thinking, it's like dusted off, and okay. So January of 2022, my friend Elise, who was on her way out before me, she sent me this article. She says, I know that you don't want to see any of this right now, but read it when you're ready. And it was the Atlantic article about child abuse, like the big landmark article from a few years ago. I think Mark O'Donnell was involved in it. And I remember reading that in the car on the way home from one of my kids' basketball games or something like that. And it blew my mind. And at this point, I'm so far away from the meetings and service that I'm like, okay, maybe all those things that Andrew had told me years ago, like, what if he's right? And that was all it took. Like, that was all it took was that one article. And then I could not get enough information. Like the Leah Remini episode, YouTubers, Lloyd Evans, of course. I found your podcast, and then my mind just was blown. I couldn't believe everything that I was finding out. The ARC, I think I watched all 8 days of it, like nonstop. But at this same time, my marriage is beyond repair. Like we've grown apart. Things are not great. Not compatible as people. He's not a very good person. And we separate in March of 2022. And then I moved here to Louisiana. I think I was only here for a couple months. Him and I tried to reconcile. I moved back to Indiana that summer. Within that same month, my dad is in ICU. He had gotten attacked by someone. I'm sure it was under very bad circumstances. So I drive from Indianapolis to Tulsa to spend a couple days with him. He practically OD'd in the bathroom in the hospital. My middle sister and I are there. None of my witness family show up. They're all aware. We called all of them, even though I'm being soft shunned at this point because I'm not going to meetings. And I had been pretty open about that because I'm going through a separation. I'm going through a very personally tumultuous time. Didn't matter. I wasn't going to meetings. So I was kind of, again, like held at arm's length. My dad's in the hospital, very touch and go. Yeah, no one, his mother, his sisters, save for one of my aunts, said that she would drop anything if we needed her to come out there. So she was the one person that was like there and supportive. Do you need money? Do you need food? Like, how can I help? So my sister and I are in the hospital, like states away from family, dealing with finding my dad like that, in the bathroom, and trauma, just layers and layers and layers of trauma. And no, my mom couldn't be there. She would have, of course, like no families checking in, like seeing how things are going. I think my grandma did a couple times, but it's so hard for her to talk about. I go back and forth with her of whether I'm upset with her or not with how she's handled him, because I get the pain of having a son who's in the throes of addiction like that. It's so painful for her. It's her only son, but at the same time, it's still your son. Like you can't just. I mean, it felt like they used the disfellowshipping thing as an excuse to kind of extricate themselves from the situation because it was just too much to deal with.
Yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses shoot their wounded. They don't help them.
Yes. And they had, and I should say that like he had been disfellowshipped for years at this point. He was on and off only because of his addiction. I mean, he on and off disfellowshipped, but they talked to him somewhat regularly when he was first disfellowshipped, and then they kind of all of the unit decided not to. And I always felt like it was very convenient that they could use the disfellowshipping because it basically left me and my sisters to handle my dad. And
Well, I mean,
that wasn't easy.
No, it's not. And ultimately, at the end of the day, even human beings are complicated, and even people who might be really nice and kind, for the most part, can still have parts to them that are not so nice and kind.
Right.
And certainly, I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses, at the end of the day, while there are some really sweet souls in that cult, at the end of the day, they're still willing to let you die. So that
Yes.
they, at Armageddon, they're willing to let their God kill you so that
Yes.
they can live in a paradise without you and be happy. So, there's like a side to all of them. There has to be. It's part of their addiction. It's part of their belief
Right.
system, and it's pretty unhealthy. So, you
Yeah.
know, people generally aren't necessarily good or bad. They've got a little bit of both
Everyone has
there.
sides. Yeah.
Trying to
So
on the
we're
spectrum.
we're dealing, my sister and I are dealing with this massive trauma
Yeah.
um of, finding him that way, not knowing if he was going to live or die. Obviously he makes it. He checks out of the hospital AMA. Her and I go back to our lives. I'm still trying to reconcile with my ex-husband at this point. I felt like it was the right thing to do. I and the kids, they were so young when we got married. I really loved them as my own. I still communicate with a couple of them to this day. But things don't work out with him. I moved back down to Louisiana in October of 2022. So, and then our divorce is finalized. I have my grounds, which I didn't necessarily care about at that point, but at least I had them. So I'm going through it. My dad, I don't know what to do with him. I didn't realize how bad he was until that experience. Because he's been very good at keeping a lid on things as well. My family has been soft shunning me because I'm not going to the meetings. I'm in Louisiana now, so anything I did get attached to as a home in Indiana is gone. I'm devastated by the divorce because It's not something, I had ever thought that I wanted. It's a mark against me, to be divorced at I was only 29, I felt was life ending. So I'm really going through it. I'm trying to get into the gym. I'm working out. A very, very pivotal conversation that I had, and I'm researching stuff at this point. So I'm leaving the witnesses, but I'm still holding on to like living the way the Bible tells me to, like just trying to strip it down and live how the Bible tells me to live. Um, I posted my family hasn't talked to me at this point in a few months. And I posted something on Instagram that I don't remember what it was, but it had like an abbreviated swear word in it. It was like, it insinuated it was the F word, but it wasn't spelled out. And I posted that on my story. And one of my aunts, who I hadn't spoken to at this point in months, she replies to the story and saying something about the swear word in the story, like, why did I post that? And I was like, and I was like, you know what? Gloves are off. I don't care. I said, oh, it's really nice to hear from you. And she's like, I'm confused. Would you want to hear from me more? And I was like, I'm going through a divorce. I've moved states and quit jobs 3 times in 1 year. I have no one. My dad almost just died in ICU. I was like, yes, I would like to hear from my family. And then I really went in on her and I said, I just wonder how many hours in the last 6 months have you spent checking up on your return visits, and you have not checked up on me one time. I
Well
don't think she
done.
expected that. But I was like, you know what? I don't even feel bad about it, because you're at this point, they're still turning in time, right? That hasn't been revealed as new light yet,
They
that we
could have
don't have
got
to do
more
that
time
anymore.
talking to you.
So, yeah, I
Oh,
remember, I
no,
don't
they
remember
couldn't. You were
her,
baptized. I don't
right? So
know.
they
Maybe
can't
as a
count the time.
pioneer.
So I don't know, maybe we'll get some new light on that next annual meeting. But yeah, I don't think she was expecting that. And I was like, you haven't reached out to me with everything I am going through. And the one time I hear from you in months is to criticize me for an Instagram post with an abbreviated swear word in it. And I just went in on her, and I don't think I heard from her again until probably March of last year, 2023. And of course, I don't even know how that conversation started, but I'm trying to make nice with her. She ends up apologizing to me for before. And I think she asked how I was doing, and I said I was great. At this point, I've met my now husband. So the second half of my life has now begun, and I'm just like happier than I ever imagined that I could be. And so I'm feeling really strong at this point. And she, of course, starts in, with, how are you doing? And I was like, I'm doing great. And I was like, I'm reading my Bible, and I'm really, working on my relationship with God. And she said, but that's wonderful. But have you thought about returning to meetings? And I don't remember what I said. I think I just reiterated that right now I'm just reading. Right now and at this point, I'm so far into the apostate rabbit hole that there's no hope of me returning. But I'm not going to say that. I'm at this point, I'm too
You know
scared
too much. You can't unknow
I
what you.
know too much. You can't unring that bell. You just can't. But I was like, I'm going to be gentle with her. I'm going to be nice. Like, I went on her pretty hard a couple months ago. So I think I just said something generic about me reading the Bible. And she's like, I'm so happy to hear that, but please think about blah, 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 blah. And I hearted the message, and I didn't even respond to it. Didn't say what I wanted to say. But then I think because I just hearted it and didn't like express, oh, you're so right, like I should come back, she unfollowed me on every form of social media. I heard through friends that she was telling people how tragic it was that me and my sister's lives have just fallen apart since we left. Because, side note, my middle sister has left at this point. Her and I were both like running in tandem to each other, having doubts, and just didn't say anything to each other.
Like
So
so
we,
many people in the
yeah,
organization.
so we end up leaving. My baby sister and my mom have been out at this point for years. So they just, did their own thing. And her and I were the only ones still in it. My mom is disfellowshipped again. The family, of course, you can't talk to your mom. And the same aunt. My middle sister is pregnant at this point with her only child. she's still very much in, to my knowledge. She's Pimmy, completely in. I think she was even pioneering at one point. And I was the only one that kept up with my mom because I was like, this isn't right. Like, I know I'm not supposed to talk to her, but there's something not right about it. And I remember my going out service with my aunt. And I remember her saying to me that because I was the one still talking to my mom, that I was the one holding her back from getting reinstated, from saving her life, and from her being able to have a relationship with her soon to be born grandchild. And I was just like, oh, you're so right. Like, how selfish of me. Um, so I kind of shunned my mom too for a little bit, like a couple months. And then I would try to reach out and encourage her to go to the meetings. But eventually I gave up on that. And like her and I resumed communications. But fast forward, back to now, like my sister and I are like this as far as having doubts and everything. And so we've both left at this point. And my mom, so now I at least have my mom and my sisters. I'm living in Louisiana, so I'm only like 5.5, 6 hours away from the family that I have. And now I've met my husband Justin, and like we're just carrying along in life. And my grandma at this point is still every couple weeks calling me. She's completely unaware of anything going on with me. I'm trying to keep up appearances still with her, because if there was one person I would have hung on for, it would have been her. But as my therapist said, I'm not responsible for other people's emotions.
Absolutely.
And I can't say, oh, it's going to destroy her. I mean, what if she let it, and that's how I had to come to terms with that. But we were still talking every couple of weeks, and it was like walking in a minefield, just trying to sidestep all of these conversations, because everyone knows that person, that they can take anything, any conversation, and make it about witnesses, make it about the end of the world and the organization and the morning worship video they watched that morning. And it was just too much. But I think the last time I heard from her was April of last year. And I'm sure she heard a rumor, because at this point I'm posting me and Justin publicly on my social medias. I stopped hearing from her. My baby sister is pregnant. And I texted my grandma back in August. And I said, hey, I was like, I haven't talked to you in a while, but I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm getting married in October. Rainey's due in October. She's having a baby. Just wanted to let you know. I never got a response. Come to find out, like my sister gave birth in October, and the whole family had known she was pregnant the whole time and had never reached out, never asked about the baby, never asked if she was okay. Just they have an entirely new family member and my husband that they've never met, and hopefully will never meet, because I don't think that they deserve to. They've
They don't
had
care. You
nothing.
see that they
They
don't
don't
care
care.
about people, do they? They care about
No.
rules. They care about
Yes.
performance. They don't care about people. Where's the love? You
Yes.
got new babies being born and
Yes.
the little ones, and you've got Justin there.
Yes.
Where's the love? Where's the support? Where are the people? They're not about people.
Especially when I made sure to put this in that message that I'm happy and I'm healthy. Like, yes, I'm marrying someone that's not a witness. They would be in shock at the sight of him. He's covered in tattoos. They wouldn't accept him, and I know that. They don't deserve to meet him. I think he's too special of a person. But to not even respond and say, I'm glad you're alive. I'm glad that you got away from that first marriage. I'm sorry we weren't there to support you, when your dad was sick and all of these things. But unless I were to start going back to the meetings, none of it matters.
Well, and can I ask? So, what'd you ever do to them?
Right. I left their religion, and that's
I
really
left your
all.
book club. I left your
Yeah.
religion. I don't believe
Yeah.
this thing anymore. It's like my mom and dad would have rather I murdered someone than I
Yes.
was an apostate who just doesn't believe their BS anymore.
I worded that I've worded it that same way to Justin, where I've said, like, the magnitude of me doing this podcast,
Yeah. Worst thing in
They
the world you could do because
they would
you're
rather
having
me
your
be
own
a
voice.
witness. Yes, they would rather me be a witness and be serving time in prison for murder
Yeah.
than be an apostate. I mean, there's to them there is nothing worse than that.
Yeah, and it's just so interesting because it's the bastardization of the word apostate that they use. It's the way that they take the word and
And they've made it their word.
they've made it something that all it was is a person who's changed their belief system.
Yes.
Or if you go back through the etymology, there's some interesting origins, like the word could have been referring to a freed slave. I like that one.
Ah, interesting.
That one I find pretty interesting. But I just left. I don't believe like you anymore. That's all. Why
That's
why
all.
why do we have to hate each other? And they want you, Haley, to. I love the phrase that you don't have to light yourself on fire to provide comfort to another person or to provide warmth to another person.
Right.
And Jehovah's Witnesses would rather you light yourself on fire to provide them warmth than for
Yeah.
you to be
It
happy.
makes them more comfortable. Yeah. And I just if I could talk to them, like that's what I would want them to know is that I didn't leave so that I could go live this immoral lifestyle. I didn't leave because I rejected God. I probably live closer to the Bible now than I ever did before being a witness. That but they would never understand that. And that would be the biggest thing I would want them to learn about me is that I'm the happiest I've been, the most at peace. I remember this phrase. I used to say this to my ex-husband. I've said it to my grandma, my mom, my sisters. When I was going through tough times, I would say, I feel like I just want to go home, but I don't know what that means for me.
Wow.
Because it was so hard for me moving to Indiana and I always felt like I was like orbiting my ex-husband's life with his kids and me being in my own religion and um dealing with at times my stepkids saying stuff to me about my Bible and my religion being not real and stuff like that. So I was dealing with it from all ends, and now like I'm home. Like that is the thing that I am most thankful for is like I've found home in the form of a person, my husband. We have this cozy little home that we've created for ourselves here. um Thankfully I want children one day. Thankfully I haven't had them yet, and him and I can have that experience together for the first time and start our own family. And that this is home for me, and it's that happiness is out there for anyone who's stuck in it, or chemo, like thinking about it, questioning. Like there is a whole different life after this, in any way that you want to live it. You don't have to still stay a Christian. A lot of people leave and they don't believe in anything, and that's fine. If you find happiness, if you're at peace, it's better than where you were at before.
Well, yeah, the ability to be authentic, right?
To be yourself.
Yeah, and the stories, Jehovah's Witnesses are gonna tell stories about you, right?
Absolutely.
And you have to at some point stop caring what they think because they can take anything, like this new women can wear pants thing at the Kingdom Hall. Like, well, that's so that they can run faster during the Great Tribulation, or that's so that
Right.
we'll blend in better so I thought you were supposed to be no part of the world. Now you're gonna look like the
Yes,
world. Like,
exactly. With the
it's
beard thing, and yes,
if you can create that level of mental gymnastics around pants, then
yes.
I'm sure you're gonna tell yourself all kinds of stories. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in any of it, but I'll put my moral life up against anyone in the congregation. And
100%.
and because at the end of the day, as I end all my podcasts, love others, do no harm, and go be happy. And that's what I believe in. And I treat other people well. I treat myself well today
Right.
instead of treating myself like garbage. I don't know why your God needs you as Jehovah's Witnesses to hate yourself.
Right.
You would think that he would want you to love yourself.
Yeah.
That's just such a awful, the way that they portray their God and the way that their God is just he's not a God of love, and
No.
they
No.
are a reflection of that God that they worship.
Yes.
He is just waiting on pins and needles to kill everyone who doesn't do what he wants them to with their supposed free will. And that's
Right.
like, that doesn't add up. It
No.
just doesn't add up at all.
The cognitive dissonance that they have to have, it's wild to think about with the updates. The beard thing actually was a pivotal, even though I don't care about a beard personally because I don't grow one, but
Sure.
that was a pivotal thing for me because I was like, and I know someone personally that had a high level of privileges, developed a skin condition from wearing masks during COVID, and was told by a doctor not to shave. He had a doctor's note. He had proof of this condition. Didn't matter. Lost privileges. Marked. Doesn't matter. And I was that day that I saw that update, because before this, I had hung on to not posting about holidays, or anti-witness stuff for my grandma, because I thought it's going to destroy her. Like, I need to just carry on until she passes, and then I can be free to post what I want to post, so it doesn't get back to her, doesn't hurt her any more than, because now me, my two sisters, and a cousin of mine have all left. So 4 out of 7 of her grandchildren are gone. She has no relationship with. So, and she would always tell me that I was all she had left. Like, she would tell me that. Like, after my sisters were out, after my cousin was out, I
No
was it.
pressure.
So a lot of pressure, a lot of shame. So I was like, I'll hang on for her. But then when I didn't get that response in August, when I let her know I was getting married, I was like, she's already shunning me. She has the red receipt set up on her iPad, and she read it the same day. To this day, no response. She's already shunning me. So why am I holding back any part of my life that I am genuinely happy in for someone that won't even respond to a text message? So I think it was October I got married, celebrated my first Halloween weeks later, carved pumpkins, watched all the movies that I've never seen before, posted pictures of it, the whole 9 yards. Same with Thanksgiving, same with Christmas, New Year's. The beard thing comes out recently, and I was like, you know what? I no longer want my name on any active publisher card in any congregation. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want my name associated with the CSA cover up. And I was like, their numbers are dwindling, and I want to be -1. So that day I texted an elder and I was like, is this still brother so and so? And he said yes. And I was like, I want to disassociate. How do I do it? So I wrote my letter, mailed it to them. They confirmed receipt of it and said it'll be announced such and such date, which was April the 9th. And that was the end of that. It felt like time. And I knew when I started fading, 4 years ago now, I knew, I was like, I don't feel like I need to disassociate. That's far off if I ever do it. But that day it just hit me. I was like, it's time. It's I want nothing to
Congratulations.
do with it. Yeah. And it was so just exciting, a little nerve-wracking because I didn't know how these things go. My experience with elders in the past was telling. I was scared, and
Mhm.
my fear was that they would not let me go easily. My fear was that they would
Oh,
try to meet with
that
me.
absolutely happens,
And
which
I know they'll
disproves.
show up at people's doors. Like, they
Yes.
will, which I live in a different state. They don't know where, but I was like, if they don't let me go easily, I'll just give them my husband's phone number and like let him deal with it, because I'm writing you a letter. I'm being crystal clear. I was detailed in my letter, about all the changes they've been making. I think one of my favorite things I said was, the principles that you live your life by right now will change next year and become apostate material.
Mhm.
Like, what is the point? Like, this is not, you got, perfect organization run by perfect men, guided by perfect Holy Spirit. Okay, but the Bible you believe in was also written by imperfect men, guided by perfect Holy Spirit, and you would never say there's a flaw with it. So why does an organization get to have a flaw when it's set up the same way supposedly as the Bible?
Well, and what you see there is that it like take the beards for instance, right? Uh your friend there who had his privileges revoked and was marked or whatever because he had this beard. When they change the rules, they're not going to go back and put him back where he was and
Oh no,
apologize to him because he disobeyed. And that's the only thing that they care about is control.
obey
And
in the moment. It doesn't matter if it changes.
right. And that's why, like, you're not, it cuts to some degree, or reflects why you're not responsible for how your grandmother will feel. Your,
Yes,
your grandmother, if she is destroyed, will be destroyed by her own beliefs.
yes,
She's not destroyed because you did something different. She's destroyed by the beliefs that
yes,
she holds based on present truth.
right.
Hilarious.
Present truth. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And
As if truth ever changes.
right. It's like it's not, this is why I always bring up it's not the fault of the gay person that there's a homophobic person out there that hates them or feels bad about their existence. That comes down to the belief systems of that human being
Of
who
that person.
feels some type of way towards that gay individual.
Yes,
You know, you're responsible for your own thoughts and feelings. No one else is responsible for that.
correct.
So I hope
And
that
everyone has free will. Like you said, I was able to dust off my critical thinking and use my free will and do some research. And so if I'm able to do that, you know, a third generation fully indoctrinated person can do that. Anyone can. Like if I can wake up, anyone can. And so my grandmother has the same, you know, God-given brain, critical thinking skills to be able to think around this. And like, you haven't shunned me because you had to. You've shunned me because you chose to. You've chosen to follow their rules, and that's your right. That's your right. I have no anger. But and when it came out that they could now say hello to disfellowshipped people and whatever they said, I
inside the
texted my
Kingdom Hall.
right inside the Kingdom Hall. You can have a simple conversation, not a complex one, simple,
Not a
but
conversation, a greeting.
a
You can say a
greeting, a simple
greeting.
greeting.
You can say, hello, welcome to the
Hello,
Kingdom Hall. Yeah,
how
we
are
got to
you?
stop
That's
now
it.
because we don't want
Right.
to actually
Which,
have a real
if
conversation.
anything, is just going to make them even weirder than they are. But I texted my sister and I was like, you know, do you think anyone's going to reach out to us? No one ever reached out to me because I've been more vocal now about anti-witness stuff. But I told her, I was like, if they do, I'm literally going to say I have no interest in rekindling any relationships that were based on conditional love. I have more love in my life now than I ever have. I have no need for people, and some will say, "Well, now you're shunning them." No, I'm setting boundaries. I'm setting boundaries because these people have not been there for me. They haven't loved me the way that they should. They've disrespected me. Um, and you don't have to have relationships with everyone.
No, of course not. Uh, you mean you wouldn't? You wouldn't go back even for some conversation fractions?
Some
You know,
conversation fraction.
it's so dumb. Like
Some I don't want a simple greeting. No,
fractional relationships aren't your thing.
right?
Um,
No,
you know, it just goes to show, Haley, that they know what buttons to push because they put them there. It's
yes,
all about relationships. Why did you get reinstated? You got reinstated for family.
yes,
They know what it is that they withhold from you and they extort you through your relationships
yes.
to try to get you to motivate you to do what they want you to do.
It's
And it just
emotional
goes to
blackmail.
show they know that. That's why they have the necessary family business thing,
Yes,
right? So that your family can reach out to you when they need something to pull at
right.
your heartstrings, to pull
Yes,
you back. And now they can say hello to you
yes,
if you could hear their voice again in two sentences or less if you were to go
right.
back into the walls of Kingdom Hall with them. Like they're just extorting you through your
Yes,
heart.
yeah. And I can't wait for things to just continue to change and shift and possibly witness splinter groups. Who knows? But that was that's the end of my journey with that, my disassociation letter. And I've now on social media been pretty vocal about a lot of CSA stuff and just
Yep.
trying to spread the word. And I've had a couple old childhood friends reach out that are curious or questioning things themselves, and that's really why I want that information out there, because if they see something and it makes them think, or they know, okay, I'm not going to reach out to her yet, but at least I know that that's where she stands, and I can reach out to her one day when I'm going through something similar. um then that's what I wanted, any of this, to this podcast, anything, that's what I want that information out there for.
Well, and can I say that that's part of the beauty of disassociating? It's that you're completely free to be yourself and to be out there and to voice whatever you want without repercussions or without worrying about that
Exactly.
anymore. And I can't tell you how many people who have found me because of the work that I do and because I put my voice out there, and they know, like, there's not gonna be any active Jehovah's Witnesses who are gonna look at my Facebook profile or whatever, well, I mean, it used to be the beard would be the tip off, but not
Now it's
anymore.
not. Now you don't
Now
know.
they look like me.
Yeah.
It's they would know who I am, right? And that I'm not a part of that thing anymore. And that there's life after Watchtower. I live out loud today. I don't need to keep quiet about
Yes.
anything. And
and
that's
and,
a
and you leave on
fun
your
way to
own
live.
terms. When you disassociate, you get to leave on your own terms.
Yeah.
And it's something I do hate, that the announcement is the same for disfellowshipping and disassociation. I wish that there was a distinction so that people knew that I left.
But at the end of the day, when you get to the place where you don't care what they think anymore, it doesn't really matter
I had to
what
switch AirPods.
okay. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what the announcement is because we don't care anymore what they think. They
Right.
can think, I don't know. What do they think when they see Jenny and I still together, right? Because we're still married. So
Yeah.
what are we're swingers? What's the thing, right? Like
Oh,
what
yeah.
is it that they have to put together in their head if they don't know that I'm a vocal apostate?
Right.
Just a person who speaks out against abuse, then what do they think? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because they're part of the past. They're not my present, they're not my future, unless they wake up someday, in which case I'll welcome them to the real world.
Right. The best life ever.
The
Yeah.
real life, the best life, hashtag best life ever. Yeah.
Best life ever.
I love how they have that stuff because that's all, it's just also part of their manipulation, right? The
Yeah.
term the real life, all the things they use
The
that they
truth. I mean, if you
know
say
it's the
that to yourself
opposite. Yeah.
often enough, you start to believe it. Like it's,
Yes.
and one thing I did to help wake up also, I didn't just dive into anti-witness stuff. I read books on cult psychology, like just, and the pattern, that was the biggest help for me, was seeing that witnesses aren't, this isn't exclusive to them. This is any high control religion. They use the same structure, same rule book basically, and the same psychological tools. Like it's all calculated.
I think I could be wrong. It's either my next podcast release or the one after it. I don't have them sitting in front of me right now. Is a group called the Two by Twos, and it's going to be a very interesting reveal because there's so many similarities in this group that most people have never even heard of,
Wow, I
and
haven't heard of that
Jehovah's
one.
Witnesses, and they too have, unfortunately, a big CSA issue that
Mm,
blew their little group wide open in some
yes,
ways. And yeah, we weren't alone. That's why I love doing interviews with like Scientologists and
yes,
FLDS and different people because you see it's the same methods of control.
yes. It's the same stencil, the same template that they just lay over it. They call it a different name.
Yep.
Instead of witnesses having one leader, they have 7 or 8 men up
Yeah.
there making the rules. It's the same structure. And once you start to see that, I mean, my eyes opened wide, and I didn't, you feel less isolated,
Mhm.
less crazy, because I've always thought of myself as a decently intelligent person, I guess. And to be like, how was I duped? Like, how did I believe that for so long? How did I live that way for so long? For 27 years, I was active. I didn't stop going out in service until, 4 years ago. I'm 31. So it's like, how did I spend that much of my life in that and not see it for what it was?
Because it's how humans work, and we are
Yeah.
easily manipulated through gaslighting.
Yes, we are.
So what do you love about your life today? What's good in Haley's world?
Oh my goodness. My job, it's my best job I've had. I'm still in pharmacy, but I just love it. I just started this job actually last month. My husband, I mean, I still don't believe he's real sometimes. He's just the way he treats me. I've never experienced anything like it.
Mhm.
It's princess treatment every single day. We just have fun. We play video games. We both work. We have fun. We know our dogs. Like we take them to the park. We're watching movies. He's catching me up on all the movies that I've never seen before. It's like that's been fun for the last year and a half. I really just live the most simple, boring life. And I say boring because I'm not drinking, I'm not going out, I'm not, but it's for me, it's the happiest I've ever been. I'm just at peace every day, just serene almost. I never thought, I've said this to my friend Elise before, that she's also, very much out. And I was like, I didn't think life could be like this. I did not think that life could be like this, because as a witness, you're always waiting for Armageddon or the Great Tribulation, or my goodness, things as simple as wearing the wrong lipstick color to the Kingdom Hall, or having too many piercings in one ear. You know what I mean? Like, just the little decisions every single day are like, feel like life and death. And the anxiety, like my anxiety level has dropped tremendously since leaving. And I'm just, that for me is like my most favorite part of my life, is just being at complete peace.